Okay, welcome back. We're on page 417 talking about the virtual private network. And that's basically how you get a connection from your main office to a field office that's 10 miles away. You don't lease a hard wire. You just tunnel through the somebody else's infrastructure. Okay, so routing on page 419. So how big is an Ethernet segment? Well, in theory, an Ethernet segment is going to be like a 100-meter radius around some sort of a switch, right? 100-meter radius. Okay. So it's the length of the cable and the number of clients. 100-meter length, maximum length of a single cable, and then a recommendation of no more than 100 connections to it. Okay. Again, that could vary. That's not what the book says. And so, how do I get from one Ethernet chunk to another Ethernet chunk? Well, I need a router in between. So there's static routing. Static routing means, look, I'm inside my building and I know that the east side of the building needs to talk to the west side of the building, and there's no discussion here. I'll just hard code the connection between router A and router B. Router A knows where router B is, router B knows where router A is, and I'll just hard code the values, and we're done. Okay, it's kind of sort of simple. Okay, that does work. But when it comes time to replace a router, then you're going to have to go, wait a minute now, what was that port number? And I mean, what was that IP address for that other router? And you have to go scratch your head and go hunt for the documentation. Another one is having it automatically figure it out. Now, so let's say I have two routers, same scenario, east side of the building, west side of the building, two routers, and they're connected together. The routers will wake up and just learn on their own. Oh, wait, I see another router over there, and I see he's talking on this IP address, and this guy says, hey, well, I see the same thing. And so they automatically learn. It doesn't take them very long. With traffic going through the system, it won't take but, under a minute for sure for the two routers to learn on their own. Okay, so interior routing protocol goes through a learning phase, a very short learning phase, and builds a map of how everything is connected. So that is pretty doggone cool, because that can adapt to changes. Like a piece goes out and you replace it, you don't have to do anything. You just take it out of the cardboard box, plug it in, turn it on, you're done. It'll go, hang on, I got my brand new router, what am I supposed to do? And it goes into the learning mode until it figures it out. Cool. Also, if you had redundancies set up, maybe instead of having two routers, I've got four routers or something. And so these two routers talk to each other and these two routers talk to each other. But they're redundant in case one of them dies. That kind of makes sense. Well, if you're using one of the ones that learn, if one of the routers goes south, the other ones go, hey, we haven't heard from router A in quite some time. I wonder if he's down. Oh, well, let's just switch all the traffic over. Isn't that the way it works? I mean, that's pretty doggone cool. If you statically did that, when the router died, well, I'm sorry, you're just out of luck. So rapidly it changed to, outages, okay? And then there's one called an exterior gateway protocol. And this is where you're routing over somebody else's stuff. Now, typically, although this is good questions for certification exams, but from a normal perspective, most people never actually get to see those guys. Why? Because it ain't your equipment, right? You think Spectrum is going to allow you to tweak their routers? The router that goes between Dallas and Denver? No. It ain't your equipment, okay? Okay. So I'm going to skip over to the section talking about internet access and corporate standards. And let's get down to software-defined networks. So I just talked about how great it was to have like redundant pair of routers and have all this stuff. But to tell you the truth, maybe you need more than that. Maybe you need something different. So a software-defined network, SDN, is let me give you a scenario. This may sound crazy. So I want to optimize routing between this point and this point during the 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock section, because that's when this replication occurs or something. So I want to dynamically configure my routing for a period of day. Or maybe on the weekend I want it to be like this, but on weekdays I want it to be like this. I've even heard a scenario where when people were taking their lunch break and they were, watching CNN or sports game during lunch, and it was sucking down the bandwidth of their the internet connection. I've actually heard of people who use software-defined network to pop that down. So only during lunch, it would actually change the routing to allow, more from a customer's perspective and less for your own employees trying to get out the internet. Okay. So it's all done in software, and you can change things dynamically. Most of the time, it's maybe it's by class of human. I am an administrator, so by God, I get higher bandwidth than you, lowly peon. That'd be one way of doing it. Could be time of day. Okay, all right, got it. And IPv6 on page 426. So in the old days, I love saying that, we had a 32-bit address space, which is roughly 3.7 billion IP addresses. And you think, well, geez, that's an awful lot. No. My household, I probably have, I don't know, 6, 7 devices with an IP address in my household alone. Okay, so we ran out of IP addresses. We ran out of IP addresses way a long time ago, like 2015 or something. We ran out of IP addresses. So we had to do something. So IPv6 has been in the works for quite some time, and it definitely solved the problem. IPv6 is actually better in a lot of ways, particularly connecting long distances. It does not rely on broadcasts, so it cuts down on the amount of traffic inside your LAN. It does VLAN and IPsec so much easier than the old IPv4. And so, shouldn't I move to V6 right now? Oh, to tell you the truth, it probably won't make that much difference unless you're a very big company. For example, in our scenario here, when we do the hands-on part, I basically turn off the IPv6 because we just don't need it. It just adds complexity to the scenario. It's just easier to talk, 192.168.1.1. It's just easier to say those IPv4 addresses and subnet masks. It's just easier to mentally figure out a subnet mask when it's this big. When it's that big, it's a little bit more difficult to figure out. So, in the real world, do you need IPv6? Yeah, you should. But if you had a small mom and pop operation, if you had less, how about this? If you had like 100 machines or less, I probably wouldn't. If you had more, okay. You had a big facility that was scattered over a larger area, and you need to take advantage of some of the VLAN capability. Well, okay. Maybe it might be a good idea. All right, so that is the end of this chapter, and I'll see you guys again in the next chapter.